Hi everybody, it's your Springfield update for Friday, April 3rd. And the legislature's finally made it to the end of what's pretty much the first half of the legislative session, with deadlines for most bills in the House and Senate having passed for them to have a vote in that initial chamber. Gives us a pretty good idea of what to focus on for the remainder of the session. So as I speak, I think the House is not actually formally adjourned. The Senate actually adjourned late on Thursday night. But next week is going to be a really good time for us to take stock and really decide what exactly are the most productive things for us to be focusing on for the last few weeks of the session. Our priorities are all alive to varying extents, and some of them are moving right along. Last night or yesterday afternoon, not sure, but the House passed the Energy Efficient Building Code bill finally, which is great. So congratulations, our first priority bill has passed its first chamber, and it was a pretty lopsided margin. I think there were more than 100 yes votes. There were a few no's. I think maybe 10 or a dozen folks voted no. That's House Bill 3897, and it is essentially the same bill as we introduced. There was a minor amendment made. You may recall that the bill originally both set a floor and a ceiling for how strict municipalities' building codes should be. The City of Chicago really maintains that it wants to preserve the right to go even stronger than the 2009 Clean Energy Code, and so the bill allows for the City of Chicago only to go stronger than the 2009 code if it so chooses in the future. But that's really the only change from the bill as it was originally introduced. And it moves on to the Senate from here, and I believe that it's going to be Senator Harmon that is picking it up in the Senate. So that's fantastic news. And thanks for those of you who were able to bring that up in district visits. We had some co-sponsors go on that bill directly from Sierra Club visits, so that's a great, strong first step. Our natural gas efficiency bill, House Bill 4321, has not yet been called for a vote. As we've been talking about, there are a lot of bills affecting the gas utility industry introduced primarily in the House, and they've all been wrapped into one big negotiation that the Attorney General's office is facilitating. And we've been spending a lot of time negotiating, perhaps even slightly improving the energy efficiency rates and targets that are in House Bill 4321. But those discussions just really aren't quite done yet, and we are anticipating that there will be an extension of the deadline for the House to vote on House Bill 4321. So over the next 2 weeks, it would be great to come back to Springfield after the break with some new co-sponsors on that bill, because we definitely are still negotiating with utilities. The more co-sponsors we have, the better position we'll be in. We finally have a vehicle for the carbon cap bill in the state Senate. Senator Heather Staines from Chicago has introduced Senate Bill 856, and our carbon cap language is contained in Senate Amendment number 1. It's identical to the amendment on House Bill 3668. So the same bill now in both chambers, and it's been very interesting to watch. I think our message is getting through, even though these bills have only taken the very first steps in the legislative process. The federal big global warming bill in Congress that Congressman Waxman introduced this week actually would prohibit state limits on carbon caps. So I think that's a sign that people are watching states like Illinois move in this direction, and all that just adds to the momentum for hopefully getting a strong proposal out of Congress. With President Obama's budget proposal, he's got a strong proposal. We now have a strong bill in the U.S. House, and Illinois movement in this direction, your legislators co-sponsoring, really helps that move forward in Washington, and of course make Illinois ready to fill in the gap if those strong federal efforts don't work. On clean cars, these bills, not much has happened with these except we added a co-sponsor in the House. Representative Pihos is a co-sponsor thanks to a district visit from a Sierra Club member, so that's good and a step in the right direction. Similar situation here to carbon cap, where the Obama administration is looking at vehicle efficiency targets and A lot of eyes are on Illinois and the level of support that this bill is getting. Every co-sponsor we get, every step that this bill moves further in the process, is more pressure on the auto industry in Washington to agree to national limits on greenhouse gas emissions. So one way or the other, whether it's passing the Clean Cars Act or getting strong federal standards, we're going to have clean cars in Illinois hopefully soon, and every visit we make, every co-sponsor we can get, helps make that happen sooner. On the Green Capital Plan, we saw just Thursday night both the House and the Senate sent to Governor Quinn what's being called a mini capital bill that has some funding for roads, for bridges, and for mass transit. And it's widely thought that this is, talking about it in Springfield as the appetizer before the main dish, a larger capital bill that would have more funding for transportation, but also all these other categories that we're also very interested in: clean energy, clean water, open space, acquisition, and the other elements of a green capital bill. So we're going to be meeting actually with Governor Quinn's office this week, checking in with legislators to see exactly what the plan is for the remainder of the legislative session and how we can really now retarget our green capital ask based on the developments of this week. But at the moment, we're not changing our message at all. That the environment still is an important part of any capital bill, and the mini capital bill, aside from some funding for mass transit, really wasn't designed to address the environment at all. Finally, just talk about visits. We have 2 weeks off now for the legislature. They don't have to be back in Springfield until April 21st. So this really is your best chance of the whole spring to get in and see your senator, see your representative if you haven't been able to. We really do need you to try to make those appointments if you haven't had a chance to yet, because by late April it's going to be pretty difficult to get to legislators in May. They'll be spending most weekdays and even some weekends in Springfield. So these next couple of weeks are really our prime season. So if you need help, if you're having some problems getting through to your district office, let us know, and we're happy to try to troubleshoot that with you, because this is really, again, where the rubber meets the road, and we're going to be able to be most effective. Those of you who've been able to get in so far, it has clearly had an impact, but we know that most of you have not been able to get in, so we're really hoping for a strong 2 weeks here with a lot of legislative district visits happening. So thanks a lot, and we will talk to you next week. Keep up the good work.